I respect your time, so here are the quick answers. No, he's not wrong, and he's only done for now. He's taking a break from YouTube. Sorry for the clickbaity title and thumbnail. You know the game. I had to do it. But there you go. You have your answers. You can leave and watch something else, or you could stay and I will break down Gary's 3 main cornerstones and you'll find out why he's wrong or right on some of them, backed by academic papers and scientific research. Alright, let's dive into Gary's first cornerstone. Is Gary right about inequality? In short, yes, but let's unpack that. First, let's set the record straight. Globally, extreme poverty is actually decreased significantly over the past few decades. According to the World Bank, extreme poverty dropped from 36% of the global population in 1990 to around 9% in 2020. And that's shown in the World Bank Poverty and Shared Prosperity Report in 2020. More people have basic access to essentials like clean water, healthcare, and even technology. So in absolute terms, wealth is rising for many. However, and this is a big however, inequality within countries has risen dramatically. A landmark study by Thomas Piketty in his influential book Capital in the 21st Century highlights that income and wealth inequality within developed countries, particularly the US, UK, and much of the Western Europe, have surged dramatically since the 1980s. Piketty's data clearly demonstrates how wealth concentrates increasingly at the top, especially through returns on investments and inherited wealth. Take a look at this graphic from the World Inequality Report in 2022. It really captures the increasing wealth gap across the world. Notice how the bottom 50% only own 2% of the wealth, whilst the top 1% own a massive 38% of all wealth growth in the world. Post-COVID, this divide became even more pronounced, with billionaires seeing their fortunes skyrocket, while millions of average workers lost their jobs or saw wages stagnate. This wealth concentration doesn't just affect economic stability, it affects social stability too. Research published in the Journal of Economics Perspectives 2020 highlights that higher inequality correlates strongly with lower levels of trust and higher social divisions, making societies more vulnerable to political and economic crises. Furthermore, a seminal paper from economists Emmanuel Saez and Gabriel Zucman, published in the Quarterly Journal of Economics in 2016, found that wealth concentration in the US today matches levels last seen in the Gilded Ages of the early 1900s. The paper also illustrates how this concentration hampers economic mobility, trapping lower income groups in cycles of poverty. Simply put, Gary's right to raise the alarm. Increasing inequality isn't just an economic issue. It's fundamentally reshaping society, and if we don't act, it risks creating profound instability. Gary's second cornerstone is that the economy is bad and it will get a lot worse. As inequality gets worse, more and more wealth ends up in the hands of the rich. They don't just earn money from working, they make most of their income from owning things like houses, land, stocks, and businesses. This kind of economy is called Rentier capitalism, where the rich make money simply by owning assets and charging others to use them. Meanwhile, regular people, especially those without inherited wealth, are forced to spend a big chunk of their income just to access the basics, paying rent to landlords, interest on loans to banks, and rising prices for housing. This means money is constantly flowing upwards, from working people to those who already have wealth. Economists call this wealth extraction. The system is set up so that wealth moves from the bottom to the top. As house prices and asset values rise, it becomes harder for average people to buy their own home or build savings. This blocks social mobility, which is the ability to move up in society or improve your financial situation over time. Without access to assets, people get stuck renting and borrowing, which keeps them in the same economic position. According to the OECD's 2022 report, No Home for the Young, young people today are significantly more likely to rent than own a home compared to older generations. The report highlights that affordability challenges, rising house prices, and stricter mortgage conditions have made home ownership increasingly out of reach for younger adults. While the overall rate of home ownership varies across countries, the trend is clear. Asset accumulation through property, one of the most common forms of wealth building, is becoming harder for younger generations to access. On top of that, Because middle and working class incomes are squeezed, the government collects less tax from ordinary people. And since the ultra-rich often used loopholes to avoid paying their fair share, the country ends up with less money for public services like healthcare, education and infrastructure. Put all of this together and you get an economy where demand falls because most people can't afford to spend. The tax base shrinks and the system starts to stagnate. It's like the economy has checkmated itself, stuck in a loop where inequality keeps growing, but the overall health of the economy keeps getting worse. So moving on to Gary's third cornerstone, which is the solution, and that is a wealth tax. First up, what even is a wealth tax? Simply put, it's a tax on your income, but not your overall net worth. Your assets minus debt. Things like property investments, businesses, and cash. The aim here isn't to punish success, but to slow down that upwards transfer of wealth we talked about earlier and stabilize the economy. The question is, does it even work? Well, we don't have to guess. We've seen it in action. Switzerland, Norway, and Spain all currently use wealth taxes. They've shown us that, yes, when designed correctly, wealth taxes can operate smoothly without killing innovation or driving all the rich away. Switzerland, for example, which has a lot of rich people, has a long-standing wealth tax at the cantonal level, and their economy is constantly ranked as one of the most innovative and competitive globally. Norway's wealth tax, similarly, has not stopped them from being ranked as one of the happiest countries globally as well. But let's also acknowledge the critics. Some argue wealth taxes drive away innovation or push capital overseas. That's partly true, as seen with France's experience. They had a wealth tax until 2017, but scrapped it partly because wealthy individuals were moving their assets abroad, making the tax harder to enforce and reducing its effectiveness. This shows wealth taxes must be carefully calibrated. Extreme rates or poor design could backfire, driving away investment and innovation rather than fostering economic equality. Now, what happens if we do nothing? Well, the history books are pretty clear about that too. Rampant inequality leads to social instability. We're talking distrust, division, and populism. In extreme cases, it fuels revolutions and the rise of far-right extreme politics. Just look at France before its revolution, or the rise of populist leaders we've seen globally in recent years. Ignoring inequality doesn't end well. Of course, a wealth tax isn't the only tool in our toolkit. Progressive income taxes, where higher earners pay even higher rates, and stronger capital gains tax, similar to an income tax, making sure investment earnings are taxed at fairer rates, could also help balance things out. So you could have a capital gains tax that goes up similarly to an income tax, and that could help. Where does Votap come in? Here's my take. Any big economic change, like introducing wealth tax, requires a public buy-in. Right now, politicians make these calls, often guessing what the public might support or reject. But what if you could directly influence these decisions? Votap is designed to give you a collective voice, clearly showing politicians exactly where the public stands on major issues like wealth taxation and progressive income tax or financial reforms. Imagine politicians seeing real-time, clear feedback from thousands, even millions of voters on crucial issues. They couldn't ignore it. That's what we're building, and it starts simple. You can vote right now on politicians. It's completely free. It takes seconds, and your voice immediately becomes a part of a powerful collective message that politicians cannot ignore. Download it now. The link is in the description below. Look around. The world's changing. People clearly want more say in their future, and Votap is here to ensure your voice isn't lost in the noise. Thank you, and see you next time.